Mrs. Periwinkle wasn't your average old lady. She had a heart bigger than a watermelon and a house full of children, none of whom were actually hers. 23 orphans, to be exact, each with a mischievous glint in their eyes and a knack for finding trouble. Their home was a ramshackle Victorian mansion at the edge of town, its paint peeling like a sunburnt nose. But it was full of laughter, love, and the delicious aroma of Mrs. Periwinkle's famous chocolate chip cookies. Just beyond the orphanage's overgrown garden lay Old Man Hemlock's junkyard. A mountain of forgotten treasures, it sprawled across acres, a hodgepodge of rusted cars, broken toys, and forgotten dreams. Hemlock, a grumpy but kind soul, was like a guardian angel to the orphans, always willing to lend a hand or share a story from his younger days. The children of Periwinkle's home were a resourceful bunch, used to making do with whatever scraps of fun or adventure they could find. But their lives were about to take a turn for the unexpected, all thanks to a stormy night and two mysterious strangers. The storm hit like a wave, unleashing a torrent of rain that hammered against the windows of the orphanage. Thunder roared, shaking the old house to its core. The orphans huddled together in the living room, their faces lit by flickering candlelight. Suddenly, a shadow appeared on the wall, growing larger as it approached the house. It was a horse, a magnificent black stallion, its coat slick with rain. Perched on its back were two figures, a man and a woman, their faces hidden by wide-brimmed hats. They dismounted quickly, leading the horse through the downpour toward the porch. Mrs. Periwinkle's sister, the stern but secretly soft-hearted Aunt Millie, answered the door. The strangers, a rugged-looking man with calloused hands and a woman with eyes as bright as emeralds, introduced themselves as Mr. and Mrs. Smith. They claimed their car had broken down miles back and begged for shelter from the storm. Aunt Millie, unable to refuse a request for help, ushered them inside. The next morning, the storm had vanished, leaving behind a world washed clean and sparkling. The orphans, buzzing with curiosity about their unexpected guests, gathered in the garden. They watched as Mr. and Mrs. Smith helped Aunt Millie hang laundry, their movements stiff and awkward. It was Tommy, the smallest and most nimble of the orphans, who overheard the whispers. Hiding behind a rosebush, he strained to hear the conversation between the Smiths. "We need to harvest soon," the man muttered, his voice low. "The green gold will be ready." Tommy's eyes widened. What was green gold? Was it treasure? Tommy raced back to the others, his heart pounding with excitement. He told them what he'd heard, and soon whispers of green gold spread through the orphanage like wildfire. The orphans were determined to uncover the Smith's secret. A treasure hunt was in order. Section 4. The Junkyard Professor. The orphans knew just the person to consult, Old Man Hemlock. They piled into his junkyard, their voices echoing through the maze of forgotten objects. Hemlock listened intently as they recounted the mysterious words, green gold. He stroked his scraggly beard, his eyes twinkling with amusement. "Green gold, you say?" he chuckled. "Well, I haven't heard that term in years. Back in my day, it meant only one thing, a particularly potent strain of..." Hemlock paused, leaning closer to the children. "Cannabis." The children stared at him blankly. Hemlock sighed. "It's a plant," he explained, "one that some folks like to smoke. Now, if these city slickers are hiding a stash of green gold, it's got to be somewhere secluded, somewhere they wouldn't expect anyone to look." Hemlock's eyes narrowed, focusing on a point on the horizon. "The abandoned farm," he muttered. "That's got to be it." Section 5. Chickens and hay and explosions. Oh my! Reaching the abandoned farm was no easy feat. It involved a series of misadventures, each more hilarious than the last. First, they had to cross Mrs. Peabody's chicken farm, which resulted in a chaotic chase involving squawking hens and a very surprised rooster. Then, they had to navigate a field where Farmer John was baling hay, leading to a near miss with a giant spinning bale. Finally, they reached the abandoned farm, its dilapidated buildings overgrown with weeds. But before they could investigate, they stumbled upon a pile of discarded fireworks left over from the 4th of July. One thing led to another, and soon the air was filled with the sound of explosions and the sight of colourful sparks raining down from the sky. The commotion, however, proved to be their undoing. It attracted the attention of none other than Mr. and Mrs. Smith, who emerged from the barn, their faces a mixture of anger and panic. The jig was up.